You wake up one morning and your legs are cramping before your feet even hit the floor. Not a little tightness, I mean that deep, ringing cramp that locks your calf muscle and makes you grab the headboard just to stand up. Or maybe it's not cramps. Maybe it's this fog that settled into your head about 6 months ago and you keep telling yourself it's just age. Or maybe your hair started thinning in a way it never did before. Or your energy dropped off a cliff even though you're sleeping 8 hours. And here's what breaks my heart. You go to your doctor, you describe all of this, and what happens? You get another pill. A pill for the cramp, a pill for the energy, a pill for the fog. But nobody stops to ask the question that matters most, which is this. What if the pills you're already taking are the very reason you feel this way? My name is Margaret. I'm not a doctor, I'm a health researcher, and I've spent the better part of 2 decades studying something that most people never hear about in a 15-minute office visit. It's called drug-induced nutrient depletion. And once you understand it, I promise you, the way you look at that little row of pill bottles on your kitchen counter will never be the same. Today, I'm going to walk you through 9 of the most commonly prescribed medications in America, pills that tens of millions of people take every single day, and I'm going to show you exactly which nutrients each one quietly drains from your body. But I'm not going to leave you with just the problem. For every single one, I'm going to share the old remedies, the foods, and the kitchen traditions that your grandmother instinctively knew how to use to put back what the pills take out. These aren't exotic supplements you have to order from some website. These are things you can find at your grocery store today, things that were staples in American kitchens for 100 years before we forgot about them. Before we dive in, I want to ask you something. If you're watching this and you take any daily medication, drop a comment right now and just tell me how many pill bottles are on your counter. Don't tell me what they are. I'm not asking for your medical history, just the number. I think you'll be surprised how many of us are in the same boat. And while you're down there, hit that subscribe button because this channel is built for people who want to understand what's actually happening inside their body, not just be handed another prescription. All right, let's get into it. Before I give you the list, I need you to understand one simple concept. Every medication works by changing a chemical process in your body. That's how it does its job. But chemical processes don't happen in isolation. They're connected to other processes, and those other processes need raw materials, meaning vitamins, minerals, cofactors, the basic building blocks your cells use to function. When a drug alters one pathway, it very often disrupts the absorption, production, or recycling of those raw materials. And this isn't controversial fringe science. This is in the pharmacology textbooks. The problem is that in a 12-minute office visit, there simply isn't time for your doctor to walk you through every nutrient interaction of every drug you're on. It's not that your doctor doesn't care, it's that the system wasn't designed to have that conversation. So, consider this video the conversation you should have had years ago. The first medication is one that over 30 million Americans take every single day, and that is a statin. Lipitor, Crestor, Zocor, whatever brand your bottle says. Statins work by blocking an enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase. That enzyme is part of the pathway your liver uses to make cholesterol. But here's what almost nobody tells you. That very same pathway, the very same set of chemical steps, is also how your body makes coenzyme Q10, or CoQ10. When you block the pathway to reduce cholesterol, you're simultaneously blocking the pathway that produces CoQ10. And CoQ10 is not some obscure molecule. It is the spark plug inside every single mitochondria in your body. Your mitochondria are your cellular power plants, and CoQ10 is what allows them to convert food into energy. Without enough of it, your cells are like a car engine trying to run on a clogged fuel line. You get fatigue, you get muscle pain, you get that heavy feeling in your legs at the end of the day. Research out of Columbia University has shown that statin users can see CoQ10 levels drop by as much as 40%. 40% of your cellular energy production just gone. Now here's where the old wisdom comes in. Your great-grandmother didn't know what CoQ10 was, but she ate organ meats. She ate heart, specifically. Beef heart was one of the most common cuts in American kitchens through the 1940s and 1950s. It was cheap, available at every butcher shop, and families during the Depression stretched it into stews and ground it into meatloaf. What they didn't know was that beef heart is the single richest food source of CoQ10 on the planet. 3 ounces gives you roughly the same amount as a typical supplement capsule. If the idea of eating heart makes you nervous, find a good butcher and ask for ground beef heart. Mix it 50-50 with regular ground beef. Make meatballs, a meat sauce, a shepherd's pie. You will not taste the difference. Your grandmother's meatloaf recipe was already doing this, she just didn't call it a CoQ10 delivery system. If organ meats aren't for you, sardines and mackerel are your next best bet. 3 to 4 ounces of sardines, 2 to 3 times a week, packed in olive oil, bones, and all. That's how coastal fishing families always ate them, straight from the tin with crackers and a squeeze of lemon. The second medication is metformin, and if you have type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, there's a very good chance you're on it. Metformin is actually a remarkable drug. It's been around for decades, it's inexpensive, and it does its primary job well. But it has a well-documented side effect that doesn't get nearly enough attention. Metformin interferes with the absorption of vitamin B12 in your small intestine. It does this by disrupting a calcium-dependent process in the ileum, which is the last section of your small intestine where B12 gets absorbed. Studies published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism have found that long-term metformin users have a significantly higher rate of B12 deficiency, and some estimates put it as high as 30% of people who've been on it for more than 4 years. Why does this matter? Because B12 is essential for your nervous system. It builds and maintains the myelin sheath, which is the protective coating around your nerves, like the insulation around an electrical wire. When B12 drops, that insulation starts to thin. You get tingling in your hands and feet. You get that brain fog I mentioned earlier. You get fatigue that sleep doesn't fix. And here's the cruel irony. Many of those symptoms look exactly like diabetic neuropathy, so they get attributed to the diabetes itself rather than to the drug treating it. The old remedy here is as simple as it gets: eggs. Specifically, whole eggs from pasture-raised hens. 2 eggs contain roughly 45% of your daily B12 needs, but it's not just about the B12. Eggs from hens that actually walk on grass and eat bugs have measurably higher levels of folate and B6, which are the cofactors your body needs to actually use B12. This is something the old farm families understood without knowing the science. They ate eggs from their own chickens every single morning, soft-boiled or fried in butter, with the yolk runny because that's where the nutrition lives. A hard-boiled yolk that's gone chalky gray-green has lost a significant portion of its B vitamins. So cook your eggs gently, soft-boiled for 6.5 minutes, or fried over easy in a tablespoon of real butter. 2 eggs every morning. That was breakfast for every working family in America for a century, and it turns out there was deep nutritional wisdom in that simplicity. The third one is going to surprise a lot of people, and that is the common proton pump inhibitor, or PPI. Omeprazole, Prilosec, Nexium, Prevacid. If you've ever had acid reflux or GERD, there's a good chance you've been on one of these for months or even years. PP is work by drastically reducing the amount of stomach acid your body produces. And yes, that stops the burning. But stomach acid isn't just there to cause you pain. Stomach acid is the key that unlocks mineral absorption. Without adequate stomach acid, your body cannot properly absorb magnesium, calcium, iron, or zinc. The research on this is extensive. A large-scale study out of Kaiser Permanente found that people who used PPIs for 2 or more years had a 25% increased risk of hip fracture, directly related to impaired calcium absorption. The FDA itself has issued warnings about magnesium depletion with long-term PPI use. And magnesium depletion alone is devastating. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in your body. It regulates your heartbeat, relaxes your muscles, helps you sleep, manages blood sugar, and calms your nervous system. When it drops, you get cramps, insomnia, anxiety, irregular heartbeat, and constipation. Sound familiar? Now, the old kitchen remedy for this is bone broth. And I don't mean the stuff in a box at the store. I mean real bone broth, the kind that gels when you put it in the refrigerator. Appalachian families and Midwestern farm families made this every single week. They'd save every bone from every meal and simmer them low and slow for 12 to 24 hours with a splash of vinegar. That vinegar is the key. The acetic acid draws the minerals out of the bones and into the liquid. Calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and a wealth of trace minerals, all in a form your body can absorb even when stomach acid is low because the vinegar has already done the work of breaking them down. 1 cup of real bone broth in the morning, sipped like coffee. That was the daily practice in farm kitchens, and those families had bones like oak trees well into their 80s. Here's the recipe. 3 pounds of mixed bones, cover with filtered water, add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, bring to a boil, then drop to the lowest simmer and leave it for 18 to 24 hours. Strain it, salt it, sip a cup every morning. The fourth medication is one of the most prescribed categories in the entire country, and that is the blood pressure medication, specifically ACE inhibitors and diuretics. Lisinopril, enalapril, hydrochlorothiazide, furosemide. If you're over 55 in America, there's almost a coin flip chance you're on one of these. Diuretics work by forcing your kidneys to excrete more water, and that's how they lower blood pressure. But water isn't the only thing going out. Potassium, magnesium, zinc, and in some cases B1, also known as thiamine, go right out with it. Every time you urinate, you're flushing these minerals out faster than your food can replace them. ACE inhibitors are a bit different in their mechanism, but they can also affect zinc status over time. Pay attention to number 5 because it connects back to this. But first, let me tell you the old remedy. Potassium is the big one here, and the answer is sitting in a jar in most southern pantries right now. Blackstrap molasses. 1 tablespoon of blackstrap molasses contains roughly 750 milligrams of potassium, which is more than a banana and a half. It also contains significant iron, calcium, magnesium, and B6. The old families, particularly in the South and in Appalachia, would stir a tablespoon into warm water or milk every evening. They called it a tonic. Some would drizzle it over oatmeal or cornbread. The taste is strong, bittersweet, and mineral-rich, like dark caramel with an edge to it. It's not sugar-sweet like regular molasses. That deep, almost metallic bite is the minerals you're tasting. 1 tablespoon in the morning stirred into warm water with a squeeze of lemon. That's your daily mineral replacement, the same way it was done in Alabama kitchens in the 1930s. Alongside that, make sure you're eating a banana and a small baked potato with the skin on every day. That combination with the molasses covers your potassium gap 3 times over. The 5th medication, and I told you this one connects to number 4, is the beta blocker. Metoprolol, atenolol, propranolol, often prescribed alongside blood pressure medications or after a cardiac event. Beta blockers deplete CoQ10, just like statins do, because they affect mitochondrial energy production, but they also interfere with melatonin synthesis. Melatonin is the hormone that governs your sleep cycle, and research published in the journal Sleep has documented that beta blocker users have significantly disrupted melatonin production, which is why so many people on these drugs report insomnia and poor sleep quality, even when they're exhausted. The old remedy for the sleep disruption piece is something that Amish and Mennonite families have used for generations: tart cherry juice. Not cherry-flavored drinks, not sweet cherry juice, but actual tart Montmorency cherry juice. Tart cherries are one of the few natural food sources of melatonin, and a study from Louisiana State University found that adults who drank 8 ounces of tart cherry juice in the morning and 8 ounces in the evening slept an average of 84 minutes longer. 84 minutes. That's significant. The old families in Pennsylvania Dutch country would make a warm drink with tart cherry juice, a teaspoon of honey, and a pinch of cinnamon about an hour before bed. They called it their sleeping cordial. You can find pure tart cherry juice concentrate at most health food stores. Mix 2 tablespoons into warm water before bed. For the CoQ10 depletion, go back to what I said about beef heart, sardines, and mackerel under number 1. The solution is the same because the depletion mechanism is the same. Number 6 is the antibiotic, and I don't mean one course when you have an infection. I mean the repeated courses that many people receive over the years for recurring UTIs, sinus infections, or bronchitis. Every course of antibiotics is carpet bombing your gut microbiome. The antibiotics can't distinguish between harmful bacteria and the beneficial bacteria that make up your gut ecosystem. And your gut bacteria aren't just sitting there for decoration, they manufacture vitamin K2, several B vitamins including biotin and folate, and they synthesize short-chain fatty acids that keep your intestinal lining healthy. When you wipe out those colonies, the production line shuts down. Research shows it can take 4 to 6 months for your microbiome to fully recover from a single course of broad-spectrum antibiotics. The old remedy is fermented food, and I'm not talking about a probiotic capsule from the drugstore. I'm talking about real sauerkraut, the kind in the refrigerated section that says raw or unpasteurized on the label. Not the canned stuff on the shelf that's been heat treated and all the beneficial bacteria are dead. 2 to 3 tablespoons of raw sauerkraut with 1 meal a day. That's what German immigrant families ate at every dinner table in the Midwest for 150 years. The bacteria in that sauerkraut, primarily Lactobacillus plantarum and Leuconostoc mesenteroides, are the exact strains that help rebuild the colonies antibiotics destroy. If you want to make your own, it costs almost nothing. 1 head of green cabbage shredded fine, 2 tablespoons of sea salt. Massage the salt into the cabbage for about 10 minutes until it releases its liquid. Pack it tight into a mason jar, press it down until the liquid covers the cabbage, and leave it on your counter for 5 to 7 days. That tangy, bright sourness that hits your nose when it's ready, that's lactofermentation, and every farm family in America knew how to do it. The 7th one is the oral contraceptive, and I know many of you watching might think this doesn't apply to you at 55 or older, but here's why I include it. The nutrient depletions caused by long-term oral contraceptive use can persist for years after you stop taking them. If you were on the pill for a decade or more during your 20s, 30s, or 40s, the effects on your nutrient stores may still be affecting you today. The pill depletes folate, B6, B12, vitamin C, magnesium, and zinc. That's a devastating list. Research from the University of Melbourne has documented these depletions extensively. Folate and B6 in particular are critical for methylation, which is the biochemical process your body uses to detoxify, regulate mood, and repair DNA. When methylation is impaired, the downstream effects touch everything from energy levels to mental health to cardiovascular risk. The old remedy here targets the biggest gap, which is folate. And I don't mean folic acid, the synthetic form found in supplements. I mean food folate, the natural form. The single best source is chicken liver. 3 ounces of chicken liver contains over 500 micrograms of natural folate, more than 100% of the daily recommendation. In old Southern and Appalachian kitchens, chicken livers were fried in bacon grease with onions on a Friday night, or chopped fine and mixed into dirty rice. Jewish grandmothers made chopped liver with schmaltz and hard-boiled eggs, served at every holiday table. That dish is a folate, B12, iron, and zinc powerhouse all in one spread on a piece of rye bread. If chicken liver is a bridge too far, dark leafy greens are your next best friend. But here's what most people get wrong. Boiling greens in water destroys much of the folate. The old way was to wilt them quickly in a hot pan with fat. Turnip greens, collard greens, mustard greens, sautéed fast in a tablespoon of bacon drippings or olive oil, just until they wilt, then off the heat. 3 to 4 cups per week cooked this way will meaningfully support your folate levels. Number 8 is the corticosteroid, and this one is a real nutrient thief. Prednisone is the most common one. If you've ever been on it for asthma, autoimmune conditions, severe allergies, or joint inflammation, you know it can feel like a miracle drug for the first few days. The swelling goes down, the pain disappears, but prednisone depletes calcium, vitamin D, potassium, magnesium, and chromium. It also raises blood sugar and accelerates bone loss. Long-term prednisone use is one of the leading causes of medication-induced osteoporosis. Corticosteroids directly interfere with the cells that build new bone, the osteoblasts, while accelerating the cells that break bone down, the osteoclasts, a double attack on your skeleton. The old remedy here addresses two gaps at once, calcium and vitamin D, and the answer is something that Scandinavian and Northern European families knew instinctively: small, whole fish eaten with the bones. Sardines again, yes, but also smelt, anchovies, and canned salmon where the bones are soft enough to eat. When you eat the bones of a small fish, you're getting calcium in its most bioavailable form, calcium hydroxyapatite, which is the same form of calcium that makes up your own bones. 3.5 ounces of canned sardines with bones gives you about 350 milligrams of calcium, roughly the same as a glass of milk but absorbed more efficiently. For vitamin D, the answer from the old kitchens was cod liver oil, 1 teaspoon a day. Scandinavian mothers gave this to their children every morning through the dark winter months, and it's no coincidence that those populations had remarkably low rates of rickets and osteoporosis, despite living in places where sunshine was scarce for half the year. You can find flavored cod liver oil now that doesn't taste like what you're imagining. Lemon flavored or orange flavored. 1 teaspoon with breakfast. Between the sardines and the cod liver oil, you're giving your bones the raw materials they need to fight back against what prednisone is taking away. And now number 9, and this is the one I saved for last, because it affects more people than almost any other drug on this list. The SSRI antidepressant, Prozac, Zoloft, Lexapro, Paxil, Celexa. Over 40 million prescriptions a year in the United States alone. SSRIs work by increasing the availability of serotonin in the brain, but serotonin doesn't appear out of thin air. Your body builds serotonin from an amino acid called tryptophan using enzymatic steps that require specific nutrients as cofactors. The most critical ones are B6, folate, and vitamin D. Without adequate levels of these, the medication designed to increase your serotonin may be working with a handicap, like trying to run a factory when the raw material supply is unreliable. There's also emerging research suggesting SSRIs may affect sodium levels and bone density over long-term use. The old remedy goes back to something every traditional culture prioritized, but I want to highlight one food that specifically addresses the B6 connection: sunflower seeds, raw shelled sunflower seeds. A quarter cup provides nearly half your daily B6 plus significant magnesium and vitamin E. On the Great Plains, sunflower seeds were a pantry staple. Farm families roasted them on sheet pans and kept jars on the counter. They'd throw them into salads, sprinkle them on oatmeal, or eat them by the handful on the porch. A quarter cup a day, raw or lightly roasted. Combine that with the eggs from number 2 and the sardines from number 8, and you're covering the cofactor gaps that SSRIs can create. Now I want to tell you about a woman named Dorothy. Dorothy is 71 years old, a retired school librarian from Ohio. 2 years ago, she was on 5 daily medications: a statin, metformin, a PPI for reflux, a blood pressure pill with a diuretic, and an SSRI she'd been on for over a decade. She was exhausted. She had cramps every night. Her hair had thinned to the point where she could see her scalp. She had brain fog so thick she'd stopped reading books, which for a lifelong librarian was like losing a limb. She assumed it was just aging. Her doctor said the same thing, but Dorothy started doing her own reading, and she began to wonder whether her symptoms might be connected to what her medications were taking from her body. She didn't stop a single pill. What she did was start adding things back: 2 eggs every morning, soft-boiled, just like her mother used to make, a cup of homemade bone broth in the afternoon, a tablespoon of blackstrap molasses in her morning water, sardines twice a week on whole grain crackers, raw sauerkraut with dinner, tart cherry juice before bed, small, simple daily changes. Within 6 weeks, the nighttime cramps were gone. Within 3 months, her energy improved enough that she started walking 2 miles every morning. Her doctor ran blood work and her B12, which had been borderline low for years, was back in the normal range. Her magnesium was up. Her sleep had improved to the point where she was reading before bed again, finishing a book a week like she used to. Dorothy didn't have a miracle. She had a deficiency that nobody had thought to look for, and she addressed it with the same foods her grandmother had served in that same Ohio kitchen 60 years earlier. Now, I need to say something important. If you are on any of the medications I mentioned today, do not stop taking them. Do not reduce your dose. Do not modify anything without talking to your doctor first. These are serious medications prescribed for serious reasons, and suddenly stopping some of them can be dangerous. What I am telling you is to add things back, add the foods, but do it in partnership with your healthcare provider, because some of these foods can interact with medications too. Vitamin K from leafy greens affects blood thinners. Potassium-rich foods need monitoring if you're on certain heart medications. Grapefruit affects statins. Always tell your doctor what you're eating and supplementing. Bring this video to your appointment if you want. The conversation matters more than any single food on this list. Here's what I want you to take away from today. Every one of these 9 medications does something real and important in your body. I'm not anti-medicine, and I never will be. But every one of them also takes something in the process. The solution is not to choose between the pill and the food. The solution is to understand that they work together. The pill manages the immediate crisis, and the food replaces what the pill uses up. Your grandmother didn't know about HMG-CoA reductase or proton pumps or serotonin reuptake. But she knew that a body needs to be fed properly to stay strong, and she knew which foods did the feeding. We just gave her instinct a scientific name. So here's your plan. Start this week. Pick the medication on this list that you take, and start with its corresponding food. If you're on a statin, get some sardines and eat them 3 times this week. If you're on metformin, start tomorrow morning with 2 soft-boiled eggs. If you're on a PPI, make a pot of bone broth this weekend. If you're on a blood pressure pill, buy a jar of blackstrap molasses tomorrow. 1 change, 1 food, 1 week, then add the next one. In a month, you'll have rebuilt a daily eating pattern that looks remarkably like what your grandmother served without thinking twice about it. Next week, I'm going to show you something that connects directly to what we talked about today. I'm going to cover the 7 warning signs that your body is screaming for magnesium, the single most common nutrient deficiency in America, and the one that connects to almost every medication on this list. I'll show you a simple at-home method to estimate your magnesium status, and I'll give you a 14-day plan to bring your levels back up using nothing but food. You don't want to miss that one. Make sure you're subscribed so it shows up in your feed. I'll see you there.